Hi everyone, welcome to my channel, 116 Craftsman. So today I'm going to reviewing one of the most versatile tools you can have in your shop. It's also the one tool that's really I don't know, I just haven't been able to get a good handle on it for getting good cuts and things like that. And that tool is the miter saw. So I like the miter saw, I use it a lot. I just can't get my cuts right. It just seem to be always a little bit off. I've done a number of different techniques that I've seen online and I still just can't quite get it. So today you're going to come along with me on this journey to determine what am I doing wrong. If you see what I'm doing wrong and I don't identify it in this video, please comment down below and let me know, because this is the one thing I've been struggling with the most, is using this tool properly. So I'm just going to check everything, make sure it's set up correctly, and then we're going to start doing some test cuts to see how maybe I'm doing those wrong, and then we'll kind of go from there. So with that, let's get into the video. Okay, so we're going to be checking a few settings on the miter saw. First thing is unplug it. So safety first. So miter saw is unplugged and we will get to doing some tests. So first thing I'm going to be doing is testing to see if the blade is square with the tabletop. And then we'll kind of go from there. So that'll be the first setting that we check. And it looks square. I don't see any light coming through or anything. Everything looks really good on that. So the blade is square to the tabletop. Next I'm going to check is for square from the fence to the blade cut to make sure that that is correct as well. So we will do that check now. So I get my square set up. Get the blade down. All right, it looks good. I don't see any variation. Everything looks nice and tight. So those two setups seem to be correct. Now the other thing I'll point out that I have on my miter saw, which I bought a while ago, I can already tell I need to replace it though, is this particular vinyl tape. This is a zero clearance tape that you can buy for these miter saws. I'll put a link down below of the one that I got. So you buy these in a pack. I think mine was a pack of 5. So it looks like it's about time to replace mine, but they're really easy to put on. They've got self-stick behind. You just put them on and then you just cut down to it. I can see how mine, because I've had to do a few bevels, so it's actually cut it off a little bit more. So I will need to do that. The other thing that I have done is I've also replaced my blade. Let me get a shot of it here for you. So it's a 60-tooth fine finish blade, 10-inch. And this one has been working very well for me. I don't think there's any problem. I replaced my blade that came with my miter saw with this blade. So I think from that aspect, we are good. And one of the other things I'm going to have to look into is cleaning my blade here. You see the buildup a little bit on a couple of these teeth here. It's not a lot when you look at it up close, but it's pretty hard packed. So I can get it off with a fingernail, but maybe that's also causing some of my problem, is the fact that maybe it's causing it to cut a little wide because of the gunk on it. I don't know. Give me a comment down below. Let me know what you think. I am going to go ahead and clean up the blade anyway. It's probably going to take me a while, so I'm not sure I'll have a results in this video. But yeah, I just thought I would add that in there, that this is one of the things they tell you to check is your blade. And yeah, I'll have to get it cleaned up. So with that, it's time to start doing some test cuts and see if we can't figure out where I'm going wrong. So let me just walk through the basics of what I do. First, we'll get a measurement on my board. So for this one, I'm going to make a cut at 20 inches. And then the next thing I will do that sometimes can help me is I will take my square and I will mark that 20 inches. Come back here. Like that. So I've got a nice guideline to go from. Now, next thing is, got to plug in the miter saw. So the next thing I normally will do on these particular woods, I will cut a clean cut off the edge just to get rid of any of the gnarly mess that you can find on the ends of these boards. So I will do that here. So my arm was blocking you there a little bit, so I just kind of moved the camera over so you can see it. So I always make sure my hand is always a good bit away. What I try to do is to lock my hand with the fence a little bit so I know it's far enough away, either with my fingers or something like that. That's just kind of a safety thing. And I also make sure I hold it up against the fence. So let's just get a clean cut on the end here. Okay, so on my Ryobi miter saw, I have a shadow line. Let me pull this away. You can kind of see it there. When it comes down, it gives me a shadow line of where my cut is going to be. So my first technique is going to be how I do this with the shadow line. So let me just kind of walk through it. I usually would get the board nice and squared up. And then I will actually bring it down to where the shadow line is just touching. Now the shadow line has the teeth marks. You can see how the teeth are a little bit wider. So I make the shadow line where the teeth are just to touch the line I'm going to cut. And then I make the cut. Now I can already tell it didn't do well, so let's just take a look and see. So I had it marked at exactly where I wanted it to be. So it was 20 inches, and I'm off by a 16th. So even though the shadow line marked, it lined right up, the edge of the shadow of the blade was lined up at the very edge of my mark, it still cut a 16th more than I would have liked. So that's the first technique that I've used that I've not been able to make work for me. So I don't know if it's the shadow of this particular miter saw or what. If you have an idea on that, let me know. So I have learned not to trust the shadow per se on making my cuts. So let me make another mark and I'll show you my next technique. Okay, my next mark, I will make it at 18. So there's 18. All right. Take my square. Make sure it's flat up against it. Make my mark at 18. And this time what I'll do is I'll measure it again to make sure I am dead on 18 all the way around. Yep. So this mark is dead on 18. So this is what I'm going to try to hit. So my next technique is really just to bring the saw blade down until the teeth actually make a mark in the wood. And then I could kind of see, okay, does that look good? Now, I have found that that doesn't always work either. So let's just make sure, let's just give it a try and see where we come up with. All right. So that tooth mark, I'm still just a little bit off. That tooth mark right there seems to be right on the line. Let's see how we do. All right. So that's pretty dead on 18. So that technique worked pretty well. And that's been the one that I've been using most of the time. But I find that even that is not exact because you're really going off of a mark you're making on the wood. And it doesn't always necessarily, work out to be exactly the same every time. But I think marking the wood is kind of my way forward. It's kind of where I've landed on. The shadow doesn't work for me, so that's how I'm going to move forward for now. The next thing I want to do is to do a test of how to do repeat cuts of the same size. I've built a number of side tables, and I've always found that when I cut the legs and trying to repeat the exact same size, I'm always off, sometimes even less than a 16th of an inch, but it's just enough to make the table a little wobbly. So let's give it a try, and I'll show you the technique that I'm using to do the same, repeat cut for things like legs. Okay, so what I'm going to do is this board, I know with the one I just cut, is 18 inches. And I'm going to try to now cut another board the exact same size. I'm going to use a technique that I've seen a lot of people do, and that's where you place the board you're going to cut on the bottom, and you put the board you're trying to size to on the top. And then what you do is you just bring your board up to where it's just touching the blade. So let's just get it there. Now what I do is I double check to make sure my end's off a little bit. So just moving it, trying to get it there has made it off, so it's off. So now I want to move everything down until the top board just touches the blade right there. Okay. So now what you can do is you move the top board off and you make your cut. And if that worked, this board should be 18 inches. And it's not. It is a 16th off. So this is the technique I've seen a lot of people do. I'll be honest with you, I've tried it a number of ways, and I'm always off. I'm always off. I don't know why. I double check everything as I put it on here. I check the sides and make sure they're butted up next to each other. I made sure my blade was just off. But what it's off is the board I just cut is always about a 16th or maybe even less than a 16th shorter. And I don't know why. Even though when I do press it up to the blade, I'm not pressing on the blade. I just bring it over until it just barely touches that blade, just barely touches it. And then I make my cut. So that's a technique I kind of come to say is not going to be reliable for me. It never has. And again, it's probably something that I'm doing. But I would appreciate your comments on how to do it properly, because I've tried it a number of times. I can never get it right. So the next thing I'm going to do, and it'll be the last one I do for this particular thing, is to do it with a stop block. So let me get that set up and we'll give it a try. Okay, so here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to put a stop block on the end. I'm just going to cut a nip off of this with the stop block just to get it squared so I know for sure that what I have my stop block on is correct to the blade. So let me put the stop block on here. Okay. Like I say, I'm just going to do it. Now, whenever you have a stop block onto a board like this, when you make the cut, you always want to make sure your blade comes to a stop. Otherwise, it can pull this board back and flip it back on you. So just be careful with that. Okay, now we are going to attempt to make a second board the same size by using the stop block. All right, so that is right on the money. So this is the one that I was a little bit off. It's 6 to 16th off. So it's 15/16. And this one is 15/16 as well. So that worked very well for me. So my setup is going to be to make the cut not using the shadow line, but using the method of taking the teeth and actually marking the wood, making my cut. And then if I'm doing repeat cuts, I'll make sure to do a stop block to do repeat cuts of the same size. So that'll be the way I do it going forward. Okay, so one other setting I'm going to have, and I'll go into a little bit more about my miter station I built here, and I did see an issue. So I was just checking to make sure that my plane was level all the way across, and it is not. So, but the miter station I built has adjustable wings. So all I need to do is unscrew this a little bit. May have to go get a. Oh, I got it. All right. So that got it about there. So that's another thing to test, is to make sure your boards, your wings on your outside of your stations are well in line with the actual cut station as well. So even with all of the learnings I've had here today, which I kind of learned before, but I just wanted to review it here and see if any of you could give me some tips as well about, what's the right way to do a miter saw? What am I doing wrong? So please, yeah, definitely give me some comments down below on what you're seeing and what you think is the right way to do it. The other thing I'm going to do is, even though this station works well, it's not very sturdy. I need to add a back to it. I did add a number of support braces across. The other thing I'm probably going to be doing is actually building a more permanent miter station. I have been able to make some space in my garage shop here for that. And then when I do that, I'm going to do inline tracks with different types of stops and have it all measured out so I can actually see my measurements. And that's going to be my next project for the miter saw, is to build that miter station for that. So that's going to be my next big project that I'll do for my shop. Well, that's it for this video. If you saw anything in this video of where I was making mistakes or not doing something right, please give me a comment down below. I really appreciate that, as I know I have a lot still to learn. And that's what this channel is all about, really, is for me to learn from you guys, and then hopefully future people can look at this video and learn as well. So don't forget to comment down below. And please subscribe and give me a thumbs up. And with that, we'll see you in the next video.